Welcome to Staff Works Explained. If you are here for the first time, please consider subscribing to this channel. In this video, we'll be talking about Bishoftu International Airport and the American interest, where we ask, why is Washington looking for a seat at the Ethiopian's next aviation giant? By the time first aircraft departs from Bishoftu International Airport in Ethiopia, the facility is expected to represent far more than an expansion of Ethiopia's aviation capacity. The project has already evolved into a contest over technology, industrial partnership, strategic finance, and geopolitical influence. At its center is Ethiopian Airlines' ambitions to build what could become Africa's largest aviation hub, while global powers compete to shape one of the continent's most consequential infrastructure developments. The latest indication of that competition came from Washington. During the first Logistics and Communications Symposium in Addis Ababa, United States Deputy Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Middle East and Africa, Mark Michel, confirmed that the U.S. Commerce Department is actively working on securing participation for American companies in Bishoftu International Airport project. His remarks, reported by Reuters and delivered after meetings with Ethiopian Airlines executive, offered the clearest signal yet that United States no longer views Ethiopian aviation expansion as merely a commercial opportunity. It is increasingly regarded as a strategic platform where economic diplomacy, advanced manufacturing, and geopolitical interests converge. The U.S. Deputy Assistant Secretary of Commerce stopped short of detailing specific contracts under discussion. Instead, he pointed to opportunities that could naturally expand the footprint of two of America's largest aerospace manufacturers, Boeing and GE Aerospace. The implication was subtle but unmistakable. Infrastructure projects of this magnitude rarely end with terminals and runways. They create long supply chains involving aircraft procurement, engine maintenance, digital aviation systems, technical training, maintenance, repair and overhaul, facilities, navigation equipment, as well as long-term service agreements that can extend for decades. That perspective explains why Bishoftu has become strategically significant. It is a project designed for the next generation of African aviation. Located approximately 45 kilometers southeast of Addis Ababa, Bishoftu International Airport is planned as a four-runway aviation complex capable of absorbing traffic that Bole International Airport is projected to grow within the coming decade. Ethiopian Airlines has repeatedly stated that passenger growth, cargo expansion, and fleet modernization require infrastructure beyond what Addis Ababa current airport can realistically accommodate. When Ethiopian Airlines Group Chief Executive Officer unveiled details of project earlier this year, he described it as an essential investment of supporting the airline's Long Vision 2035 strategy. The airport is intended to become the operational backbone of that vision, enabling the carrier to significantly increase passenger throughput, expand cargo handling capacity, as well as strengthen Addis Ababa positions as Africa's principal intercontinental connecting hub. Industry observers frequently compare the concept to Dubai International Airport as well as Al Maktoum International Airport, not because the facilities are identical, but because both were conceived around a hub and spoke operating model. In such a system, passengers traveling between continents connects through a central airport rather than relying on a direct point-to-point services. For Ethiopian Airlines, whose network already links Africa with Europe, Asia and Middle East, as well as the Americas, additional airport capacity is not simply desirable, it is a fundamental sustaining future growth. The numbers illustrate the scale of the undertaking. Current estimates place the development cost at approximately 12.5 billion US dollars, making it one of the largest airport infrastructure projects ever attempted on the African continent. The African Development Bank has committed an initial $500 million, while leading efforts to mobilize roughly 8.7 billion US dollars from additional financiers. Such financing structures are common in mega infrastructure projects where multilateral development banks use their participation to reduce perceived investment risk and attract commercial lenders. From a project management perspective, this process is known as financial de-risking. Rather than funding an entire project independently, institutions with strong credit standing provide anchor financing that encourages other investors to participate under favorable conditions. The approach improves confidence among commercial banks, export credit agencies, as well as institutional investors, while reducing borrowing costs for the project sponsor. Then, Washington's commercial strategy, which we say extends beyond aircraft sales. Although Boeing naturally attracts attention whenever Ethiopian Airlines announces fleet expansion, the Commerce Department interest reflects a broader industrial strategy. Earlier this year, Ethiopian Airlines confirmed an agreement to purchase 6 additional Boeing 787-9 Dreamliners, supplementing an existing order for 20 aircraft. Each new aircraft potentially creates decades of downstream business involving engine support, spare parts, logistics, predictive maintenance software, simulator training, as well as technical services. GE Aerospace occupies an equally important position within that ecosystem. Modern commercial aircraft engines are no longer sold as isolated products. Manufacturers increasingly operate under long-term performance-based service contract, where revenue is generated throughout the operational life of the engine. These agreements often rely on continuous data monitoring, digital diagnostic, and predictive maintenance, allowing airlines to minimize unscheduled downtime while improving fleet reliability. For American policymakers, securing participation in Bishoftu therefore offers commercial benefits extending well beyond construction contract. It strengthens demand for high-value manufacturing exports while reinforcing long-term industrial relationship between United States aerospace companies and one of Africa's fastest-growing airlines. Michel's additional remarks concerning operation with Ethiopia Artificial Intelligence Institute reinforces that interpretation. The Commerce Department indicated it is also seeking closer collaborations around American artificial intelligence technologies, suggesting Washington increasingly views digital infrastructure, aviation technology, as well as advanced manufacturing as interconnected sectors rather than isolated commercial opportunities. Let's look at the Chinese factor, the influence without certainty. No analysis of Bishoftu can ignore China, although doing so requires separating established facts from assumption. For more than 2 decades, Chinese state-owned enterprises have become deeply embedded in Ethiopia's infrastructure transformation. Chinese financing and as well as engineering has supported highways, industrial park, power transmission systems, and perhaps most visibly the Addis Ababa Djibouti SGR, a corridor that fundamentally altered Ethiopia's logistic network. Chinese companies have also played a major role in urban transport, telecommunications, as well as industrial development across the country. That historical presence naturally raises questions about Bishoftu. At present, however, there is no publicly confirmed evidence that a Chinese contractor has secured the principal airport construction contract or that Chinese policy banks are leading financing package. The absence of such announcement is itself noteworthy because previous flagship Ethiopian infrastructure projects often involved clearly identifiable Chinese engineering firms and lenders from an early stage. This uncertainty appears to have created an opening that Washington is now eager to exploit. Rather than attempting to displace existing Chinese investment elsewhere in Ethiopia, The United States appears focused on ensuring American companies participate in sectors where technological leadership and long-term commercial partnerships provide competitive advantages. Aviation fits that profile exceptionally well. Unlike conventional civil works, modern airports depend on integrated operation of ecosystems. Air traffic management systems, security screening technologies, baggage automation, and airport operations software. Aircraft maintenance infrastructure and digital communication platforms require continuous technical support throughout their operational lives. Winning contracts in these areas can establish relationships that will last for decades. Yet, competition should not be automatically be interpreted as confrontation. Ethiopia has consistently pursued pragmatic foreign economic policy, engaging partners from different countries such as China, Gulf states, Europe, Turkey, India, and increasingly the United States according to project management requirement rather than ideological alignment. That diversification reflects practical consideration. Mega infrastructure projects rarely rely on a single country or institutions for that purpose. Financing, engineering, specialist equipment, as well as operational expertise are typically sourced from multiple jurisdictions to distribute both financial and execution risk. Consequently, Bishoftu may ultimately emerge not as an American project or a Chinese project, but as an international infrastructure program, drawing an expertise from several competing economies. Airports of this scale function as an economic ecosystem rather than transportation facilities alone. Beyond runways and terminals, there lies cargo villages, aircraft maintenance complexes, fuel storage systems, customs facilities, multimodal logistics centers, hospitality developments, as well as commercial real estate. Together, these components create what project planners describe as an airport city, where aviation becomes the catalyst for manufacturing, trade, tourism, and investment. That broader economic logic explains why global powers are paying closer attention to Bishoftu. Whoever contributes meaningfully to its development gains more than commercial contracts. They establish enduring relationship with one of Africa's most strategically important aviation markets, while positioning themselves inside an infrastructure asset expected to influence regional connectivity for decades. Whether Washington succeeds in translating diplomatic engagement into tangible contracts remains uncertain. What is already evident, however, is that Bishoftu has moved beyond realm of airport construction. It has become a test for how infrastructure, industrial policy, and geopolitical competition increasingly intersect across Africa's next generation of mega projects. In part 2 of this, we'll examine the project governance and procurement strategy, analyze delivery risks through the lens of project management, assess the role of financiers as well as engineering partners, evaluate Ethiopia's balancing of US, Chinese, and Gulf multilateral interests, as well as conclude with a critical assessment of whether Bishoftu can realistically become the aviation gateway its planners envision. History offers countless examples of airport mega projects that began with bold ambitions only to encounter cost overruns, delayed commissioning, financing gaps, and governance disputes. Bishoftu International Airport enters this landscape carrying enormous expectation, but expectation alone do not determine project success. Execution does. For Ethiopian Airlines, the airport is not merely another infrastructure investment. It is the physical foundation of the airline's long-term growth strategy. The carrier has spent decades building one of Africa's strongest aviation brands through disciplined fleet expansion, route diversification, investment in technical training, and development of one of the continent's most respected maintenance repair overhaul centers. The airport therefore becomes the next logical phase of institutional growth rather than an isolated capital project. The challenge lies in translating strategic vision into coordinated execution. From a project management perspective, developments valued at more than 12.5 billion US dollars are among the most complex undertakings in modern infrastructure. They require the integration of multiple work streams: engineering, design, environmental compliance, land acquisition, procurement, financing, utility relocation, airspace planning, aviation safety, certification, and operation transition. Each stream follows its own schedule, yet all must converge before commercial operations can begin. This is where governance becomes decisive. Effective governance in mega projects extend beyond oversight commitments or committees or periodic reporting. It establishes clear decision-making authority, accountability frameworks, and risk ownership. Without these mechanisms, projects often become vulnerable to scope creep. The gradual, the gradual expansion of the project requires, after construction has begun, which frequently result in escalating costs and prolonged delivery timelines. Maintaining discipline over project scope will therefore be as important as mobilizing financial resources, among others. Airport developments are particularly susceptible to design revisions as technology evolves, passengers forecasts change, and stakeholders require additional facilities. Every alteration, however justified, has implications for procurement, engineering, and scheduling, as well as financing. For Bishoftu, managing these interdependencies will be critical if the target completion date of 2030 is to remain achievable. Financing remains the defining variable. Construction has already commenced, yet securing the full financing package remains one of the project's most significant challenges. Africa Development Bank commitments of US dollars 500 million represents an important anchor achievement, but it covers only a fraction of the estimated project cost. The bank's broader role, leading efforts to mobilize approximately 8.7 billion US dollars from additional financiers, is arguably more consequential than the initial financing itself. Large-scale infrastructure financing increasingly depends on blended capital structure. Rather than relying on one lender, projects combine multilateral development finance, export credit facilities, commercial lending, institutional investors, and in some cases, sovereign-backed financing. This diversification distributes financial exposure while improving projects' resilience against market volatility. Ethiopian Airlines Chief Executive Officer indicated earlier this year that American financial institutions had expressed interest in supporting the airport project. Although specific institutions have not yet been publicly identified, the statement aligns with Washington's broader effort to deepen commercial engagement across strategic sectors in Africa. Should American financiers participate alongside multilateral institutions and other international lenders, Bishoftu could become a notable example of diversified infrastructure financing. Such an approach would reduce dependence on one funding source while providing greater flexibility throughout construction. Nevertheless, raising billions of dollars in an increasingly uncertain global financial environment will not be straightforward. Higher global interest rates, currency fluctuations, supply chain disruptions, and inflation continue to influence infrastructure costs worldwide. Airport projects are particularly exposed to because they depend heavily on imported equipment, specialized engineering services, and advanced aviation technologies, many of which are priced in foreign currencies. Consequently, financial risk management will remain an ongoing process rather than a milestone completed once funding agreements are signed. The strategic value extends beyond aviation. The commercial development interest reflects a broader shift in American economic policy towards Africa. For years, U.S. engagement on the continent often centered on development assistance, governance programs, and security cooperations. Increasingly, however, Washington is emphasizing commercial diplomacy, which is using trade, investment, as well as industrial partnership to strengthen long-term economic relationship. Bishoftu fits nearly within that strategy. Unlike traditional infrastructure projects, airports generate demand across numerous high-value industries. Talk of civil engineering firms which construct terminals and runways. Talk of aerospace manufacturing supplying aircraft, technology companies providing digital infrastructure, security specialists installing screening systems, energy companies supporting fuel distribution, telecommunication providers establishing mission critical communication networks, as well as software developers delivering airport management platforms which are capable of coordinating thousands of daily operations. Participation in one project can therefore create commercial opportunities spanning decades. For Boeing, the implications are obvious. Ethiopian Airlines already operates one of Africa's largest Boeing fleets, as well as the carrier's recent agreement to acquire 6 additional Boeing 787.9 Dreamliners, which reinforces a long-standing relationship. For GE Aerospace, the opportunity extends well beyond engine sales. Modern aircraft engines increasingly operate within predictive maintenance ecosystems, where real-time operations data is analyzed continuously to anticipate component wear before failures occur. This approach reduces operational disruptions, improves aircraft availability, as well as lowers lifecycle cost. Long-term maintenance agreements associated with these technologies often become more valuable than the initial equipment sale itself. This helps explain why the Commerce Department framed its interest in terms of broader American industrial participation rather than isolated commercial contracts. We also say that China remains an influential benchmark. Although public discussions often portray African infrastructure through the lens of strategic rivalry between Washington and Beijing, the reality is considerably more nuanced. China's influence in Ethiopia did not emerge overnight. It was built gradually through sustained investment in transport infrastructure, manufacturing, industrial parks, and logistics corridors that supported Ethiopia's economic transformation over 2 decades. That legacy continues to shape investor perception. Any major infrastructure project announced in Ethiopia is inevitably prompting questions regarding potential Chinese participation because previous developments frequently involved Chinese engineering firms, financing institutions, as well as equipment suppliers. Yet, available evidence surrounding Bishoftu appears or suggests a more open, competitive environment rather than many earlier projects. Rather than signaling a retreat by China, this may indicate Ethiopia's deliberate effort to diversify strategic partnership. Such diversification strengthens negotiation leverage, broadens access to technology, and reduces over-reliance on any one external partner. From Addis Ababa perspective, maintaining balanced relationship with multiple economic powers offers practical advantages. American aerospace technology, European engineering expertise, Gulf investment capital, multilateral development finance, as well as Asian manufacturing capability need not to be mutually exclusive. If managed exclusively, they can become complementary components within the same project. The success of that balancing act will depend on a transparent procurement process, competitive bidding, as well as consistent governance, where standards are capable of attracting diverse international partners while maintaining public confidence. Now, let's look at the broader implication for aviation in Africa. Bishoftu is being developed during a period of profound change within African aviation. Passengers' demand continues to recover following the disruption caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Intra-African trade is expected to expand further through the African Continental Free Trade Area, increasing in demand for both passenger connectivity as well as air cargo. At the same time, African carriers face intensified competition from Gulf Airlines, European networks carriers, as well as rapidly expanding operators in Turkey and Middle East. Ethiopian Airlines has consistently outperformed many regional competitors by combining disciplined commercial management with sustained investment in fleet modernization as well as technical capacity. The new airport represents an attempt to preserve that competitive advantage for the coming decades. However, Airports alone do not create successful national aviation hubs. A genuine hub depends on efficient custom procedures, reliable ground transportation, competitive airlines economics, effective air traffic management, attractive transit facilities, as well as regulatory uncertainty. Infrastructure provides capacity. Policy determines whether that capacity is fully utilized. That distinction is often overlooked in discussions surrounding large aircraft development. If Bishoftu succeeds in integrating physical infrastructure with efficient operational management, it could reinforce Ethiopia's position as Africa's primary aviation gateway. If institutional coordination falls short, even world-class facilities may struggle to achieve their projected potential. We call this a defining moment for Ethiopia and a revealing moment for global competition. The growing interest shown by the United States in Bishoftu International Airport is about more than Boeing aircraft and GE Aerospace engines. It reflects a recognition that infrastructure has become one of the principal arenas through which economic influence is exercised in the 21st century. For Washington, participation would demonstrate that American companies remain competitive in Africa's largest strategic projects, offering advanced technology, sophisticated aerospace capabilities, as well as long-term industrial partnership. For China, the project serves as another reminder that infrastructure development or landscape it helped shape across Africa is no longer uncontested. While Beijing remains a dominant player in many sectors, governments across the continent are increasingly seeking a wider range of partners to maximize investment options as well as technological advance. For Ethiopia, however, the calculation is fundamentally important or different. Success will not be measured by which foreign partner secures the largest contract, but by whether Bishoftu is delivered on schedule, within acceptable cost parameters, as well as to international operational standards. The airport ultimate value will depend on its ability to support economic growth, strengthen Ethiopian Airlines global competitiveness, as well as expand Africa connectivity with the rest of the world. In that sense, Bishoftu is neither an American project nor a Chinese project. It is an Ethiopian project with global consequences. The competitions now unfolding around this project illustrates a broader shift in international engagement with Africa, one of which infrastructure is no longer viewed simply as concrete, steel, or asphalt, but as an instrument of economic strategy, technological influence, and long-term geopolitical positioning. The runway is taking shape southeast of Addis Ababa in Bishoftu will eventually carry millions of passengers each year, and long before the first aircraft rotates into the Ethiopian sky. However, they are already carrying something equally significant: the competing ambition of nations determined to shape the future of African aviation. So thank you for reaching this far. If it's your first time here, please consider subscribing to this channel. You can also watch other videos that we have made on this airport, among other projects in Africa. So thank you, and let us meet in the next one.